live stream where you can submit your images live before the stream begins, and I'll edit them here for you live using DxO Photolab 8. And the purpose is really to just see the workflow that I use to edit photos, my thought process and composition, and also to learn the tools in Photolab. Also, I am an affiliate of DxO Photolab, so if you're interested, I do have links down below to download Photolab 8 free trial, and also there's a 15% discount code for new customers. So I do run the ads this month free of ads, no commercials. So hopefully, you guys will support my channel and the work that I do here using my affiliate links, donations, and memberships. Subscribe, click the like button, all of that stuff is greatly appreciated. So, as usual, it's good to see everyone here. I see John and Larry and Jeff. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in today. And uh, I guess without further ado, we'll get right into it. Let's see here. Let me minimize some of these windows. And looks like I have 7 images today to edit. We'll start here with one from Larry. Okay. And we have a little dragonfly here. So, and I'll walk you through my thought process for editing, just to give you my workflow. And the first thing I look at an image is I think about the overall composition and the exposure. So I'm looking for global changes that I can make right away. And I don't see any issues with the exposure. Exposure looks good. But the composition, as always, I always like to do a little cropping, especially with wildlife uh, nature shots, because usually we're at a pretty good distance and we have to crop. So, and for this one, I think a square crop will look good. Oh, the other thing is I always apply a basic preset. I have a new preset I developed here called High Res. It's really good at bringing out the finer detail, I think, in wildlife, especially like birds and anything with fur and feathers. So I'm going to tweak it a little bit more, and then I'll share that with the community when I think I've done all I can with it. But the basic preset is essentially noise reduction, optical corrections with some very, very minor sharpening. In this case, my high-res preset also does some contrast adjustments to emphasize the details. And I also tweak the noise reduction also to bring out more detail. Okay, so we'll do a square crop on this and just come in nice and tight. And then I also like to look for any kind of leading lines coming out of the corners to draw the eye into the frame. So let's maybe do something like this and uh, think about the balance. So square looks pretty good. I think that'll work right there. All right. And then from here, sorry, I need to move this window over to this side. Okay. Um, let's just punch in and see. And I'm going to use the loop tool to check the fine detail. The loop tool basically applies all of the corrections that you don't normally see until you export the image, like noise reduction and sharpening. So a lot of times I'll use the loop tool and work with the fine detail with the loop tool because I can see all the changes immediately. So let me go to, let me see if I can just increase the sharpening here or perceive sharpness. So I'm going to go to the corrections panel. And in this case, since it's just a hair soft, I'm going to increase the radius of the pixels that it's going to look at to look for contrast. And you have to be careful because if you do this too much, it'll make it a little crispy. But I think about right there is good. Okay, and the threshold is fine. Edge offset. I'm not seeing any haloing, so I think we're okay there. We go back to the loop tool. Let's go to 400% and just fine tune that a bit more. And basically, what the unsharp mask does is it looks for contrast, and then depending on the radius, how many pixels it separates in the contrast, and then how much this is basically a contrast slider right here. And this is just dictating how many pixels you want to adjust the contrast by. It's just kind of another way to look at the unsharp mask tool. And of course, contrast is how sharpness is determined, basically. So I think that looks good. Okay, now let's bring out the brightness of the shadow areas here. So I think I can do that with just a simple control point. We'll just stick that right in there. And I'm going to tighten up the chroma and luma masking. Well, in this case, I think just luma will do it. So I'm going to mask based on the brightness. And this is a very dark area, so I want to kind of tighten that so I'm not affecting the background. I only want to adjust the shadows right in this area here. And then I'll just do a linear push here, since I do have a relatively tight mask. Okay, that looks a lot better. Now we can see some of the finer details. And I'm going to add just a little bit, well, not here. I think we're good here. I was thinking about adding maybe some micro contrast, which again would sort of help with the perceived sharpening. All right, that's good. Now, by raising the shadows, I want to try to emphasize there's a little bit of green here versus the blue. So I'm going to try and separate the colors a little bit, again, using just control points. So I'm going to select sort of the greenest area here and come right in on the eye. And then yeah, I think that's good. And then let's just try vibrancy, just to bring that out more. And I like to start with vibrancy, and then I'll go to saturation. All right, that's good. That looks good. And then I want to emphasize sort of the blues on the rest of the body. So I'll create a new control point. And we'll just kind of walk this through on each area here. I can bring this in a bit. Then I'm going to tighten up the chroma mask this time, or masking by color. Because again, I don't want to affect the brownish areas here. I'm going to add one more there. And then let's again try vibrancy. Yeah, that looks good. I don't want to make it too saturated, but maybe just a touch of saturation right in there. Okay, let me just back up a little bit and look at it. Okay, that looks good. Now the background is almost perfect the way it is, but I'm going to try and add a little bit of dynamic range to it. So I'm going to use a control line and just darken this side. Try to do it in a very graduated way. And I'm going to tighten up the chroma just 5 points. And the chroma and luma, I like to just move it plus or minus 5 or 10. More than that, I do time to time if it's a really low contrast area, but we have very good contrast between brown and blue or yellow and blue. So I don't really have to do too much here. And I can use this eyedropper to change the effect. So you can see if I put it on the blue, there's barely any masking happening. but really I want to affect just this area here. And I'm going to back off the luminance just a little bit to make it a little bit smoother. And then let's just make this side a little bit darker. Maybe pull the blacks in. And let's spread that a little bit more even to about there. I'm going to bring everything in kind of in a line. I think that looks good. Now, in the selective tones, my general approach is usually try to make a linear line here. I don't want any zigzagging like this typically. Although I will do it time to time, but typically I like to have a very smooth linear type approach here to make it look as natural as possible. It minimizes haloing and other effects like that that you might get when you start to work with individual tones in the image. Okay, and then I think overall, I just want to brighten the image a tiny bit on a global scale, like this. And I like to look at the histogram. Why is it sort of hidden here? Let me see if I can adjust this a little bit. Because I scaled my screen, I'm losing a little bit of the histogram. But this is right about the middle. The blue here, the blue channel, which is the blue here, I want this to be kind of middle gray. So I'm just going to adjust it right about there. Because sometimes, when you're looking at it on your screen, it's hard to tell sort of the overall brightness of the image because I want sort of a natural lighting, and natural lighting is right around the middle of the histogram. It's sort of a normal lighting, rather than say low key or high key, too bright or too dark. I want it to be kind of right in the middle. And I think that's about perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double check with the loop tool and see how we did with the noise reduction. Still a little bit of noise in here. So I'm going to go back here and click the auto. I'm just going to back this off. Okay. I think right about there is good. And all the rest of this looks good. All right, let's export this and see what we get. Whoops. Let me go back. I exported to the wrong folder. Give me 1 second. It should only take about 10 or 15 seconds to export. Let's try that again. Current original folder. And I give it a suffix of DxO, JPEG, 94, right in this range is fine. And then sRGB as the output profile, because this will probably go on to Instagram or Facebook, something online. You want to use sRGB. Okay, let's export that one more time. Oh, I didn't download the optics module. All right, hold on. That's critical. Let me get the optics module. That helps with the sharpening. Whenever you see a green down arrow here, you need to click on that so you can get the maximum benefit from the optics module and sharpening. Because what DxO does is they analyze camera and lens combinations and then dynamically improve the sharpness of the lens by whatever algorithms they developed for that camera lens combination. Okay. Now we're ready to export. Well, let me just loop again. Whenever I miss a step, yeah, okay. So we need to adjust this. That optics module came in and did all the sharpening for us. So let me go back to turn this off. Let's put these back at the defaults. And I'm going to back this off a little bit. Right about there. And let me go back to the luminance correction. Right there. Then I'm going to creep this up just a bit. Okay, good. Now we're ready to export. Oh, sorry about that. If I didn't have an optics module available, let's say you were using an adapted lens, like a vintage adapted lens, then the workflow I showed with the sharpening, the unsharp mask, works best when DxO doesn't have an optics module for a particular lens. All right, now we're good. So let's reset this and then compare the two with, let's set the reference image. So this one, so I exported two of them by mistake. Okay, it was this one, the second one. All right, so not bad, not bad there. A little bit crispy, but if we go back to sort of a normal view, if you look at the original, we were way down here. So it cropped in to about here. And I think, yeah, that looks really good. Okay, very nice. Let's go to the next one. Thank you, Larry, for sending that. If you were to, if you in your own post processing, if you're using DxO or whatever, maybe back off the unsharp mask a little bit. I kind of overdid it just a tiny bit, but overall, I think that came out pretty good. All right, and I'm going to edit this image, and then I'll go to the chat section and answer any questions you might have. So if you have any questions, you can put them in now while I'm editing, and then I'll go back and answer them. Okay, so let's see. We have some chairs. So this is some sort of park. Let me apply basic preset. I don't need any optics module. And it's a lot of verticals in here. So I'm just thinking about the geometry. The exposure is very high dynamic range here. Very high, very strong highlights and dark shadows. So I'm gonna have to account for that or temper that just a little bit. But I'm guessing the subject here is just this round table or whatever, these row of chairs here or stools, whatever. Trying to think of a story or composition here that I can make of this. Because it's an interesting shot because of these. And then the tree line. So the story is really right in here, I think. place where people gather. And then the backdrop of the woods gives a sense of place. So I do kind of need it all. My guess would be do I really need let me let me think about the composition real quick. Do I really need much off the top? Maybe there. Just coming a little tighter to this area. Okay, that's better. I don't think I can come in much tighter. So I'm looking at the left side. I'm going to keep a little bit of an opening here and a little bit of an opening here. Try and balance this side and this side. So that's the other thing is I try to look for balance, right? If you were to put the image, on a point, is it going to tilt left or is it going to tilt right? If that makes any sense. So if we were weighing things where the bright areas are kind of very heavy and dark areas are very light in terms of weight, then this side it's going to tilt a little bit to the right because there's a lot of strong highlights here. But I think the magnitude of here, I think we're okay. All right, so let's do sort of a global push on the exposure. See if I can just push the shadows a bit. Just before I get into local adjustments, because the shadows are just a little bit dark. I think that's good. Um, Now let me go into some local adjustments. And I'm going to create a control line just for the trees. And I know it's affecting down here, but that's okay. So I'm going to tighten up the Luma mask. Maybe one more. And let's just do a linear push on the exposure. All right, that's good. About a stop. Okay, now let's make a new control line for the highlights. Right now, I'm just trying to balance the exposure. So I'm going to take a control line in here. Just pull that in. An eyedropper I want there, and we'll just do a slight push on the masking for the Luma. And let's just do a linear pull. See if we can recover those highlights. So the highlights look like they're clipped. I think about right there. Maybe just a little bit extra pull on the highlights. You have to be careful with highlights because you don't want them to get muddy looking, meaning low contrast. You want them to stay, you want it to still have some contrast in general. I think that's about the best I can do because these are clipped back here. I'm just going to move the eyedropper around a bit. I think that's good. All right. I'm going to do a global micro contrast here. So let me turn that on. It's going to automatically detect about 14. That looks good. I'm gonna give it a little more. Okay. All right, that's good. Now, these clipped highlights here is just brush, right? So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll correct for that by using the healing brush. So in this case, I'm gonna use clone, and I'm just gonna just select this area here and see if I can pick another part of the brush that's sort of similar. Let's see. Let me minimize this. Okay, that's not bad. Then I'm going to get them really tight and just fix some of these. I just try to pick some random areas. Whoops. Maybe a little bit. Take a little bit from over here. And I'm going to dial back the feathering a little bit. It's bleeding a little bit too much. Let's try. Let's grab some from over here. And I'm going to show something new. I probably haven't shown this before, but I want to make sure this just stays in the brush. So I'm just going to crop this in a little bit, maybe tilt it. Let's see, bring the feathering back. If I do repair, repair is not bad. Let's try that. Okay. We'll do just a little bit in here, a little bit there. Minimize this. Okay. Let's do that. I know I'm getting a little bit carried away with this, but it's just brush, so it's okay. Let me get this side a little bit. About take a little bit from here. Oops. Where did that last one go? Crap. I lost track of where I'm at. This one. All right, I think that's enough. I don't think I like this one. I'm going to leave this alone. Okay, go in here. I'm going to expand this out just for each one of these little bitty stools. And I'm going to add some clear view and micro contrast just to make them stand out a bit. Maybe pull the exposure down a bit. See if I can temper the highlights a little bit here. No, they're clipped. All right. All right, let me see where I'm at. Uh, this first control line I made here, I'm going to back this off a little bit. Okay. I think we're good. So let me export this. Okay, and then reset and compare with the output. All right, so as you can see, I cropped in just a little bit extra so that these are a little bit larger in the frame. And then I made them darker compared to the ground with a little bit of punch on the detail. And I think that works pretty well. Just the overall composition, I think, is a little better this way and a little more balanced. Uh, and I wanted to see the color of the trees here, so I raised the exposure. So let's just zoom in so you can kind of see the difference. And you can see, what an amazing job DxO does with pulling out the details. But at the same time, in terms of exposure, I think this is a lot better. Just being able, because I think this is more natural, what your eyes would see. You wouldn't see like these dark, almost clipped to black shadows. You would see this. Of course, nothing I could really do about these. I could go back in and try and brush these out using the healing brush, but it's not necessary. And then again, down in here, when we look at the individual, that looks like a bucket. Maybe it's a tree stump. This is definitely a tree stump down here. But yeah, I think it really did a good job bringing out the details. So yeah, I kind of like that. Let's do just a swipe. So there's the after, there's the before. A little bit too contrasty. This is a little softer, uh, and I think a little more natural looking. All right, so let me take a quick look at the chat section. And Roger, good to see you. And William is here. Good to see you. Oh, you uploaded some? Okay. I'll get to it when I finish the rest here. Just remind me if you're still here. And it says, Rob, my friend shoots Olympus and has OM Workspace, she always shoots in JPEG. Is it worth buying? No. The main limitation of OM Workspace is primarily that it doesn't do local adjustments. So, like in this image here, if I wanted to brighten only the trees, like I did in this image, this will be very hard to do in Workspace. You can, of course, push shadows, but with DxO and a lot of other photo editors, you can selectively brighten the trees without brightening the rest of the scene. Because if I did a global thing like an OM Workspace, I would have brightened the back area here, this green as well at the same time, and brightened all of these individual stools. So that's kind of the main limitation of uh, Workspace is no local adjustments, no way to selectively change colors and brightness. But if she's primarily shooting JPEG, there's not much wiggle room to begin with. So even if she were able to do local adjustments on a JPEG, she's going to be very limited. So I would just say stick with Workspace and work on primarily your composition and exposure to get the image exactly the way you want it in camera, so that when you do go to edit, you don't have much to do in post-processing with a JPEG. Uh, I would say that's much more critical is composition and lighting and exposure than doing local adjustments like I did here. And let's see, not much data to work with, but some JPEG here. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And Marco's here. Good morning. Hey, hello. I'm glad you dropped in. All right, let's take a look at the next image here. And this is a JPEG. So this is something, okay, so this is a good example of the OM Workspace question, right? There's not much to do here with exposure and color and composition. It's pretty much perfect straight out of camera. So this is an ideal candidate for OM Workspace, an image like this, where really all I need to do is, of course, I'm going to apply my basic preset, which is not going to do much, as you can see in this case. I'm going to think about the overall composition, like going to a square, maybe even a vertical. Let's stay 4 by 3 and just make this a vertical instead. And balance the image. Look for that leading line in the corner. I think a little bit too much on top. So let me just come in a little tighter. And I think that's a nicer composition. And then I'm going to add a little bit of contrast in here on the bottom, then try to brighten up the dragonfly. So maybe we'll just, let's just do it directly in here this way. Make this a little smaller. And I'm just going to increase the micro contrast. Right about there, maybe push the midtone slightly in the shadows. Okay. Let me try a little clear view and some vibrancy. Maybe instead of vibrancy, let's try and separate this sort of purplish color and the green. So let me make a new control point. And I'm going to select sort of this purplish area. and here, and here, and here. And let me see if I can spread this a little bit. Then let's make a new control point for the greens. So the JPEG is not giving me a lot of data to push and pull these colors. Uh, I'm going to try. All right. I think that's pretty good. Maybe a little bit too much green. Get a little brighter. Let's do a global. Oops. Let's maybe not global. Let's just push the shadows a bit. And some micro contrast. All right. Now let's work on the dragonfly. Missed focus slightly. So because this is a JPEG, I don't have access to the deep prime demosaicing that helps with the noise. So I'm gonna have to work with the unsharp mask mostly. So let's try. Can't remember if, yeah, I'm gonna have to work with a global unsharp mask. I wish I could unsharp mask locally, but okay, we'll work with it globally. So let's turn this on, and then the radius is going to be pretty high because this is a little bit out of focus. Let's try 2 pixels and then increase it. 3 pixels, yeah, that's looking good. I'm going to bring in the loop tool and just inspect. Okay. I'm going to just push the, let me turn this, what's the auto say, 100? Now let's pull this back. It's not really any chroma noise in this at all because it's a JPEG. It's already been kind of processed. I'm going to see if I can just minimize a little bit of the speculars, like the artifacts I'm seeing. Starting to get a little bit of a halo effect. Let me see. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of a halo effect around the legs. So let me back off the radius, increase the sharpening. I think that's about as much as I want to do. But now from a distance, this looks kind of sharp. I can actually crop in a little more now. I want to keep the edges of this flower though in the frame. I'm not worried about the right side. It's kind of implied. All right, good. Let's increase the brightness of the dragonfly a tiny bit. I'll bring that in a little tighter. And let's just push the shadows. Yeah, that looks good. Bring in a little bit of micro contrast. Clear view just a touch. All right. And let's push the blues. Spread that out. Just so it stands out a little more. All right, I think I'm done. So let me export that. Oops. And we'll reset and do a comparison side by side. All right, so here's the original image. I think I kind of like the way the bokeh in the background is framing the whole thing here. So a square crop I think would work really well as two. But I decided to go with a vertical. But a square crop I think right here would look good. So I just noticed how this this flower in the background is framing the foreground. But I have that same effect here, I think. And if we go into the detail, brightening up the blues and adjusting the unsharp mask really makes it look like the dragonfly is actually almost in focus, whereas over here it's completely out of focus. Uh, so by adding contrast and saturating a bit, when you back off a little bit, I think now it looks like everything's in focus here. And let me just do a slider view. Yeah, that looks good. All right. Very good. So you sent the raw version? Okay, I'll come back to it. All I have to do basically is copy all the adjustments I made. So let me put the settings back in there. I'll come back to it. Okay, we have one here from Paul. Nice tight crop already. So I don't have to really crop at all. All I need to do really is maybe brighten the eyes, give a little push on the shadows here, and a little push on the highlights over here, just to separate the front a little bit. So let's apply basic preset, and birds I always do eyes, beaks, and talons. So let's start with the eyes. We can see a little bit of a pupil there. So I'm going to push the shadows way up. Clear view makes it nice and glossy, and then contrast, micro contrast, I should say, right in there. Okay, that looks good. See if I can use the same one on the beak. Yeah, the beak looks good. Let's move this around a bit. Right there. Maybe spread this out. Push the midtones as well. I just like the around the eyes and the beak to be a little bit brighter than the rest. So that's why I'm doing that. And let's do a little bit of a push on the shadows. Tighten this up a bit. Okay. And then I'm going to pull the highlights in a bit down here. And then add a little bit of highlight to the right side. Okay. So let me see how we're doing. All right, now the background, I think a little bit of maybe blue would just help a little bit. So I'm gonna cool off the background a bit. Maybe just let's control line and just cool it off a tiny bit like that. And my eyedropper is primarily on the blue area. That's good. Maybe not that much. Okay, maybe the same thing down here. Let's see. Hmm, maybe not. That's I don't know if pulling the blacks in would help. Let me try. Just to give it a little more contrast. Right there. Try in here again. Yeah. So we'll just continue this idea all the way around. All right, I'm going to call it there. So let's export. Just double check. Yeah, I did everything here. I probably should have done my high res preset on this, but the default settings are fine. Since we have a really nice tight crop, uh, I think it would look too crispy if I use my high res preset. I think this will come out pretty good. All right, so yeah, I just wanted to brighten the bird more dynamically by making the right side a little brighter. But then this side was a little too dark. We couldn't see the feather detail quite as much as I wanted. So I wanted to push the shadows a tiny bit. And of course, the beak and the eyes, I think, make a big difference. The talons were fine the way they were. And if we just punch in, like I said, without using my high res preset, I think we got more than enough detail uh, out of this bird. The key thing just being the eye. But compositionally, I didn't have to crop or do anything. It's a great shot. Um, maybe do a slider. That's the before and after. Okay, very nice. All right. That was okay, Paul. Thanks for sending that one. And we got one here. I got two from Paul. Okay. So let's apply basic preset. And this is interesting. This tree, this really old tree, lost the left side here. That looks painful. So I will I want to keep this whole story here. I think all I need to do really is just bring out the shadows a little bit, maybe even do a black and white. Um, yeah, I think a black and white that works. So we'll start with black and white, and then just do some local adjustments and just push the shadows a bit. Add some clear view, and then a new brush here to bring out some of the details, or a new control point, excuse me. Um, all around this tree, I'm going to use clear view and micro contrast. I just want the tree to stand out a bit. Maybe just selectively sharpen this area too. And then let's give it a little bit of a push on the exposure. A little pull on the highlights. Okay. And then let's go back to the color and do some global things with the channel mixer, maybe. Let's see what the blues, pull the blues in and the greens and yellows. And we'll push the reds up. The reds being primarily the tree. And let me go back to the brightness again. Let me push just a global. And then I'm going to add a vignette. Do a global vignette. Let's move the vignette there. Okay, I'm going to turn the chroma and luma all the way to 0, invert it, and then just pull the exposure in. Maybe stretch it out a bit more. Move it over. Okay. Would I like to have this side of the tree in the frame? Just a little bit wider shot, but I'm not sure what's left and right of this shot. So just a little wider shot. Let's try 3 by 2. So I want the tree, I want this frame to elongate or look wider than it is because of this branch here. So let's put it there. So I'm watching this corner here, having this one branch kind of lead you into the scene a little bit. Make it, let me see what a 16 by 9 looks like. Because there's nothing in the top left corner that we really need to keep. I don't want to lose the scale of the tree. Yeah, I'm losing a little bit of the scale of the tree. I think a 3 by 2 is just right. And I'm going to try and balance the scene now, like that. Okay. So let me get my loop tool and just inspect some of the fine detail here. Might be too close in. Okay. I'm gonna selectively, let me see, was that? No, it's this one here. Let me pull this in a bit and put some smaller ones in here. A bit more pull here, a little bit of pull here. Oh, look, because the tree is getting a little bit too contrasty to the point it blends in with the background. So this is sort of the global contrast. But I want to keep the fine details with the micro contrast. I think that's good. All right. And then last thing I'll do is let me go back to color. It's going to be jacked up. Yeah. Maybe a little bit of a partial on the channel mixer. Yeah, I think the color looks a little better if I just mute them slightly in a very selective way. That's not doing anything, but okay. There's no magenta in this scene. All right, let me compare that again to the black and white. Yeah, I think that works better. Just a little bit more blue. Okay, let's export that. I just kind of worked on the black and white to get the tones. I thought I was going to go black and white to the end, but then once I was having trouble separating the tree from the background when it was all black and white. There just wasn't enough separation. So going back to color, but muting them, I think still maintains that sort of style or mood that I was going for. And let's do a comparison. Um, because the tree looks like it's dying or dead. I mean, it is kind of that time of year where I guess nothing really has any leaves on it. But I think going to a more muted color palette helps. Black and white would have been perfect were it not for just this area here. The background was not separating too well. Uh, so leaving a little bit of color in there like this, I think works pretty well. So if we just do sort of a big slider move, that's the before and that's the after. And I think going to a 3x2 crop really makes this fallen branch or fallen half of the tree stand out more and looks like it's coming more into the frame towards you versus the original, just having it looks like it's moving a little bit away. It's very subtle difference. But I think that came out nice. Okay. Let's see. And we have one here from Roger. Um, Gosh, I hope you're standing on a dock or a pier of some kind, or you have some rubber boots on. Man, this is really wet, soggy ground all the way in here. Oh, I don't see anything here. I'm gonna crop a little bit to get rid of that. Are there some cattails in here? There's some cattails that I can kind of bring out. But I think this shot works better as a horizontal than a vertical. I'm just gonna move around a bit and just try to find something in the frame or elements that I can. Okay, this tree line's got potential, but not. Yeah, we're gonna have to get a lot closer because I like the little accents of cattails and whatever these things are back here, contrasting with the green, just like the tree trunks contrasting with the green leaves. But this area here is a little bit overwhelming. The grass is so tall, and it's just I don't see any. There's really two shots here. There's one up here and one down here. The one down here, you would have to get you need a lower perspective, I think, to make down here work a little better. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to crop a horizontal, recover a little bit in the sky. I think that's what I'll do. So let me get a basic preset, my default. Let's try something about here. Maybe a little bit wider. Let's try 3 by 2. I'm just going to divide just to try to create some depth to the scene. And that's a little bit too balanced. I think maybe about there. Uh, yeah, I'm just basically dividing the scene into thirds. So foreground, midground, background in the sky. All right. Uh, Dang, this one spot here though. Okay, that's fine. All right, let me separate the greens from the yellows the best I can. We can try it globally. I mean, green and yellow are so close together, as you can see on the color wheel. I'm going to shift them even a little bit more red, just a tiny bit. And we'll open that up a bit. Okay, let's back off the contrast. Push the luminance a bit. All right, let's work on the greens. We'll back off the yellow. Uh, Pull the luminance in a bit. Yeah, just a little bit. All right. Now we can kind of see the cattails and other kind of yellowish things in here. It's a little bit strong. There. Back it off a bit. Okay, these trees, I think we can do some local stuff. Let me bring in the sky best I can. Move the dropper up there and just hit the clear view and the highlights. Micro contrast. Go to some global. Okay. It's a little bit bright on the right side, so just going to add a local control point over here and just do a slight pull on the highlights just to even that out a bit. Okay. And I wonder if I can just add some clouds to the right side. So I should feather that more. No, I can't do it. The luminance is too different. Yeah, it's not going to work. It's all right. We'll leave it. Okay, now I want to separate this tree line just a little bit more. There's good separation now, but the yellow's here or something needs to be brighter. So let me try with a control point again. Whoops, it's too big. Oh, maybe a brush. Let's just do a brush. I'm going to turn the flow and opacity down. Opacity's all right. Let's just turn the flow down to about 10. 20. Okay. And a little bit smaller brush. And just increase that a bit. Here, a little bit more here. More in the center. A bit more there. Okay. A little more. A little bit smaller. Ah, let me back this off a little bit there and come back. All right, now, these individual tree trunks. See, there's some nice ones in here. I wonder, let me get a different brush. I wonder if I can get these selected just enough. Let me see. Not bad. Okay. So just do a little bit of a push. Good, good, good. That's good. A little bit there and there. And a little bit in here. It's okay if it spills over a little because these things are so far away. They're only a couple of pixels anyway. I don't have to be quite as precise with the did I get that? No, I didn't get that yet. Go in here and then touch in here. A little bit more in here. Okay. I think we're almost there. Go back to this brush. This brush needs something. Maybe clear view and a little more saturation. A little bit brighter. All right. We're almost there. This front area is still a little bit too. Let me try 16 by 9. Maybe a 16 by 9 will do. Okay. And the sky can be a little bit bluer. That was this control line, right? Okay, and the greens. That was a global change. Let's go back to the greens. Let me shift the greens, maybe, yeah, a little bit more yellow. Okay, I'm gonna call it there. So let's export. Everything looks good there. And reset, compare. Okay, so pretty dramatic change in terms of composition, going from a vertical to a horizontal. But I really wanted to separate. Oh,
Someone is at front door.
oh, I got a package. I'm sorry. Uh, give me 1 second. I need to get this package. Oh, maybe. Ooh, got a lens. Okay. Awesome. I'm back. Okay, so Yeah, I got a new lens. Anyhow, yeah, it's one I need to review. It's a pretty interesting one. Unfortunately, I just can't get any Micro Four Third lenses, but it's still an interesting lens. But anyway, back to this photo. Yeah, I think this composition's better. Or I like this better. And separating the horizon with the sky and the tree line, all of that stuff, and bringing out the yellows of the cattails. Maybe I should have pushed the reds a little bit too. And then also I wanted to just get little hints of being able to see the tree trunks as well in the background, just give it a little more, few accents in the background as well. So I think that works pretty well. So if we look at the before and after, we had this giant vertical versus going to a horizontal, which I think this works a little better. Okay, let's see. Got one more here by Jeff. And wow, this is a beautiful scene. All these flowers and everything. Um, what can I do here? I love all these colors right in here. And then these two ladies here, they might get mad if I crop them out. Alexa, stop. Sorry. Okay. Let me think about a couple of compositions. So I'm going to apply a basic preset. And let me see perspective. It's a little bit of a keystoning error. But I'm thinking a vertical right in here. I don't know, I kind of like this opening here too. But I think a vertical is the way I need to go. Like that. I cut off this little part here. Can I save that? Not, not really. Okay, that's okay. But this, I'm losing a little bit too much on the left side. I think I'll go right there. So now most of the frame has good color in it, right? And then it's a really nice strong light source over here. And I'm going to brighten the colors. So let's do some local control points and just spread this out a bit. I'm going to pull the chroma and luma back. And let's do that down in here too. Maybe a little bit on her and her. Bring that up. Push on the shadows. And whoops. And give it a little more vibrancy. Okay, let's temper the highlights a bit. Okay, good. And I still need more light on the left side, a little bit warmer light. Let's try a control line. Uh, I'm going to put the dropper on the stones here. Maybe just come to that line. Brighten that a little, give it a little warmth. Oh, we have 58. Let's go to 64. Okay. And let me back, whoops. I'm going to back off on the chroma and luma. Make these both 40 with some micro contrast. Oops. Maybe a little bit of clear view. Okay, let me work on these flowers again. This flower needs another control point. And some vibrancy. Okay, let me just get an idea. This image needs something. Can I adjust this one here? Okay. And we'll just add a little bit of kiss of light on these trees. Tighten up the luma mask and the chroma. Just do a linear push and give it a little warmth. 500 Kelvin, but a lot more. Uh, some clear view. Okay. Okay. This little plant needs some clear view right in here. Go back to this light. The light is not quite right. If I just make this a straight linear push, make much difference. I need this area down in here to be a little warmer. Maybe just a single control point. Maybe a push. Shadows. in this area here. Let's see. All right, that looks okay. All right, we'll call it there. All right, so side by side with the final output. So I think I feel bad about taking this one person out, but this scene is a little more balanced. Because, like I said, if I were to tip the image, it would probably tip a little bit to the right, too much. Uh, and then over here, it's just negative space that doesn't really add anything. So I think this works. This composition works a little better. It just feels better to me anyway. And then just warming up the scene overall. I think this composition works. So if we just split it, there's the original, and here's the final composition. I think that looks good. All right. Let me check the chat, then we'll download whatever came in since I started. Uh, and Marsh is here. Good to see you. Um, oh, Noah's here. Good to see you, Noah. You're back. And I picked the image of the robin that I sent in today as it was shot with my Lumix 100 to 300, and I wanted you to get a feel for that lens is capable of sharpness. So yeah, wow, yeah, that was really sharp, that lens. It looked really good. Of course, that was a really tight shot too, right? So you always get a lot of detail. But it is a great it did perform well. And Paul, let's see. These are back and forth. Sorry, Rob, I meant to submit the raw, just upload. Okay, that's right. I'll take a look. And then Paul sent his edit. Okay, we'll see how your edit compared to mine. I forget which one. It was the Robin, I guess, right? And wasn't intending you to edit that one. I assume you mean the tree, right? Uh, yeah, new lens arrived. A square crop might have kept the other woman in, possibly, but then I would let's take a look. Let's take a look. Um, 'Cause if I went to a square, I just kind of like the ladder. Yeah, that would have kept her in, but her feet are cut off here. Yeah, the feet are cut off, which is not great. Oh, sorry, you're not seeing that. So the feet are cut off down here, right? If I go to a square crop, and I kind of lose sort of the perspective of the height of the ladder also. So I think ultimately I would still go with this vertical crop because of the ladder. I think that works. Okay, let me see what else came in, and we'll do those. I need to get to the right window. And let's see, Noah sent one. 1 second, almost there. I see a few new images here. So I need to go into this folder and save there. One from Marco, a blue jay. Oh, come on, okay, blue jay. And the raw file from Robert. That should be a quick one because I just have to apply a JPEG from Shri. Oh, he sent his edit and then he wants me to edit his. Okay. Shri's raw image. I think this is Paul's edit of the robin. Yes. And one more here from William. Wow, quite a bit came in, almost as many as I started with. Okay, I think I got them all. Uh, so this is Paul's edit, and we can compare that to my edit. Okay. I think very similar in detail. Uh, it looks like, yeah. So I went a little bit stronger with the eyes and the beak primarily, and then we did the same thing with the shadows down here. But I think the key difference is I illuminated the right side of the bird a little more, just to give a little more light hitting the bird from the right side. But okay, very nice. Let's see the details. I think details should be the same because we're both using DxO. So details look good either way. But your oranges look a little bit off. Just a little mushy a little bit. I'm not sure why. Maybe a clear view or something. I also shifted the white balance a bit too, so I think that's the difference. Because I'm seeing a little bit more blues in your image. On mine, it's a little bit warmer. Okay, and then let's see. Let's go back. Okay, here's the original raw. So all I have to do is I'm going to Control Shift C and copy the settings I did here, and then just Control Shift V and paste them onto the raw image. Did it apply the deep prime? And wow, the raw image, yeah, we're gonna have to brighten that. So it's because that's my original. Well, that's my original. But when I apply the same settings to the raw, it's very different. Oh, okay. Uh, is it because of where the control points are? Let me see. Yeah, the control points are off a little bit too. These are way off. These should all be inside here. And this one, if I named the control points, I could put these back where they're supposed to be. I think this was, yeah, this was for the Dragonfly. These were for the pinks, I believe. That I do with this micro contrast. Okay, so this was just simply micro contrast. And then this was what? Micro contrast and a push on the shadow. So this was all for the greens. Probably could push the shadows a little bit more. And then, wow, it's a lot sharper because the DxO optics module has been applied. So let me warm up the image a tiny bit. There. Move it there. Okay, let's see how that looks. That's pretty close. So if I reset, how come compare it with, yeah, this one. Okay, so I think with the raw image, I was able to get actually a lot more sharpness out of it, out of the Dragonfly. Now it looks a lot more in focus, say compared to the original JPEG where the camera kind of baked in, the sharpening. Going to going to the raw image, the DxO optics module was able to apply its dynamic sharpening that it uses based on the lens and camera combination, and it just came out so much better. So, yeah, I'm glad you sent the raw in so you could really see the difference of working with the raw image and the optics module sharpening versus manually sharpening like I did with the original JPEG. This made a huge, huge difference. Okay, let's see. Okay, one here from William. And so we'll do basic default preset, fix the optical distortions and corrections. Let's go to perspective. A little bit too much. I'll back this off a little bit. Okay. And then crop wise, I can come up a little and over. Debating if I need this red building or not. The exposure is just, I'm thinking, let's see. So there is some highlights in here that I can recover. But I'm thinking I'm going to have to start with a very, very dark exposure and then work my way back. So, yeah, I'm going to start right about here and then kind of work my way back to what I think looks all right. Um, So from here, let me see what's inside. I think I'll work over here. And start with the light here. Let's see. Do that. And then spill that down here a little bit. Okay. Right about there. Let me tighten this up a bit. Spill a little bit on the bench. And a little bit onto the wall. Well, that might need a separate. Okay. So we'll go there. And then let me start a new control point. Let me work on this wall. Maybe just to push, tighten up the Luma mask. Put a little bit here. Let's make it warmer. Okay. In this window, some clear view. We'll push on the midtones and highlights. All right, so again, with the architecture, we're kind of missing the door, the entrance, right, to this building. I think that's what's kind of throwing me off. So we have to work with this sign as being the focal point and then try to minimize everything else. All right, let me get a control point and we're just gonna do a sort of a gradual push. Like this, okay. These, I need to back these off a bit. Yeah, just back that off a little bit. And then a control line, kind of this way. And just push the shadows a bit. Okay. All right, let me see where I'm at. Uh, all right, then there's a couple of accents here, flowers. So let's do that. Maybe I can brighten just the reds there a little bit. Okay. Okay, now those top windows and sky. So the sky, another control line, and that'll affect the windows also. Let's tighten up the luma just a bit and clear view it and pull the highlights a tiny bit. Okay. That's fine. All right, there's one control point. This one's a little bit too yellow. Okay, that's good. All right, I think I'm at where I want to be. I can just crop a little bit higher, get rid of that cup. And add some micro contrast for the texture in the wood. And I'm going to tighten up both chroma and luma on this. It's 5 points. Maybe even on the red. Okay. We'll go down here to micro contrast. Well, let's give a little sharpening and micro contrast. Okay. Um, this is still a little bit bright. So right there. And let's do a global, bring this back a little bit. Okay, I'm going to call it there. So I'll export. And let's reset and compare with the output. All right, so obviously optical corrections and a little bit of deskewing for the perspective, and then separating the light a little more. I wanted to separate the light. Is that even light on this sign? Might be just paint. Huh. But I wanted to separate this sign a little bit more from the rest. Uh, and why is that blinking? Oh, because my finger's up. Anyway, and then bring out the texture in the wood. So if we kind of zoom in, I like the texture in the wood and sharpening on the sign. You can almost read what's playing there. Uh, I think that came out really well. So let's do a slider go back. So there's the original. Of course, highlights are all blown. But I don't know, I kind of want a little different approach. I don't do it very often, but I'll darken the image down and then bring back the areas that I want to bring back. I thought it'd be a little more dramatic than what I did here, but uh, I think this feels a little better. Okay, let's see. Next one here from Shri. So Hummingbird. All right. So let's do a basic preset. And let's see. I kind of like the point of view here. I'm gonna get rid of this. I love these flowers around it. I wonder if I can just keep this part right here. And then all we have to do is really temper the highlights a little bit. I think we're good. So let's see if we can do it directly on the bird first. Yeah. And then we'll do the same thing for the feeder. And then I love these flowers back here. I'm just going to saturate them a bit more, maybe. Wrong one. Let's give them a little bit more pop. Okay, now let me go back to the bird. And let's fix the eye up. Let me get really in there. Right there, some clear view, micro contrast. We temper the highlight right there a little bit more. Okay, the eye, yeah, I think that's all we're going to be able to do. Let me check the loop. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. All right, let's do the beak a little bit. So the beak, I'm going to do a little bit tighter on the luma and just get right in here. Let's try just clear view and micro contrast. Maybe I push the highlights. Okay. Maybe, yeah. Let me back off the luma around the face. And there's a little bit of color back here. So I'm going to try and make that pop a little more. Let's try micro contrast, clear view, and a little push on the shadow, and a little bit of saturation or vibrancy. Right there, okay? And I need to temper the greens a little bit because they're just a little brighter than this bird. maybe globally. I don't want to jack up the yellows too much. So I'm going to back this off. Back off the saturation a bit. Yeah, I'm getting into the yellows too much. I'm gonna have to brighten the bird up a little bit more. So let me just get in here. Okay. You still need to isolate that bird a bit. I think this down here is a little distracting. So let me see if I can crop in. I don't think I can do it unless I go a little bit more 3x2-ish. Yeah, that's better. Need a little more light on the bird. So let's see. Just right in here, maybe. Push the shadows. Okay, I'm going to call it there. Maybe a little bit of a vignette. Let's do that. So put the vignette on the bird. Turn off the chroma and luma, invert it, and pull it in. All right, we'll call it there. So did I get all the optical corrections in? Let me adjust this a little bit. Loop in. I want to make sure I get some detail on the bird. That's too much. So we'll leave that off. A little more detail. Just pump that a little bit. Okay. And back this off a little bit. Okay. Now we're done. And reset. Compare it to this. All right, so composition wise, I just love these flowers around the bird. It just feels so natural next to this very artificial sweet feeder, right? And of course, we had to temper the highlights and balance the exposure on the bird because it was just such a strong light here. So bringing out the the shadow areas and the details best I can. And we'll zoom in a second. The only problem with the feeder really was this bottom part here was just when it was in the frame originally, it was a little distracting, my original crop. So cropping it a little tighter got rid of that, or a different aspect, a 3x2. Uh, but yeah, I think these flowers just really make the entire composition a lot nicer. Just adds a little bit of nature, more nature than man-made, right? And if we look at the fine detail, I made a, I yeah, I overdid it a little bit on the sharpening. I would back that off a little, but still, you know, yeah, I overdid it just a little bit. So I'll back that off a little in your own editing because that now it looks a little bit kind of AI over sharpened, right? But ultimately, back here, I wanted to make sure I got the color in the back here. The talons look good, nice and sharp. And the beak, I wanted to make sure the beak had nice speculars on it. So we got that. And and then a little bit of a vignette to focus the light over here around the bird, right? So this is back to being much darker and a little bit over in here. It's very subtle. It's not that noticeable, but since you saw me edit it, right, you can see the vignette. Uh, so if we do we can do a slider, and you can see this is just a very busy scene, and the bird's kind of in the middle of it. Whereas this is a much simpler scene while still keeping all of the elements that I think matter. Um, okay, very good, very nice, Shri, very nice shot. So I think this was Shri. I noticed Shri sent his edit in. So excellent job on the detail. You didn't sharpen as much as I did. So I think this is about right, the level of sharpening, particularly for viewing in the framing that you did. The main thing here, difference is that uh, I kept the flowers on the left. So this is a nice shirt of the hummingbird, but I feel like this shot here, this composition, I should say, is just feels a little bit nicer than this one. If I wanted to take the time, I would get rid of this line here and this line here. But that can be a little tricky. Okay, very nice. Good edit though, Shri. You did a really good job on the edit with the sharpening, and the eye looks really good. Good specular here. I would have just pushed the shadows a little bit more and tempered the highlights, on the feeder itself. But the bird itself, in terms of the sharpening and denoising and the composition, everything looks really good. All right. Let's see. We have a blue jay from Marco. Marco rarely sends a picture in, but that's awesome. I'm glad you could send one in. So let's see. Nice tight shot. We need to think of just start with a basic crease set. I need to get the head out of the dappled. This is very dappled lighting, right? So I need to make the head brighter. That's it, and then crop in a little tighter. So let's just do a square crop. And put the eye right on that 1/3 there. It's a little bit heavy on the left. Hmm. Just a little bit more up here. Okay, perfect. All right, let's work on the bird first. So I need this side to be brighter. Let's tighten up the chroma a little bit on the luma and just push the brightness up. Whoops. And then since we brightened it, we need to bring the color back. So let's do that and then warm it up a tiny bit. Where were we at? 55. Let's put about 6,000. Because the darker shadow areas are generally a little bit cooler in temperature, so I'm just adding it back in because we brightened it, right? Uh, Maybe a little bit more linear push, and let's see if we can keep the blues nicely saturated. All right, that looks good. Um, we'll leave it there. All right, let's work on the eye and the beak. So for the eye, we're going to just push the shadows, give it some clear view, micro contrast. I don't want the eyes to glow, but I definitely want to see that brown color. Okay, the beak just needs a little bit more contrast, basically, to make the speculars. Uh, so let's just push the highlights and give it some clear view, micro contrast. Oh, let's tighten up the chroma. So I'm getting a little bit of a halo. There we go. Um, I lost a little bit of detail here. Let me check something. See which one is causing it. All right, there's not much there to begin with, but it's definitely this control point. So let me go back to this. And what is causing that? Is that, no, it's not the saturation. Okay. Oh, the exposure is a little bit too much. So let's do it with tones. Let's push it this way. Okay, that's better. It's very subtle difference. Let me see. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Might need a little more light. So I'm going to do a new control point uh, right in here. Just give a little extra push. All right. Let's temper the highlights a bit on the feathers here. A little more. Okay. And then let's add a vignette. So 0 and 0, invert. and pull. Maybe just the blacks. Okay. And a little bit of shadows down in here. Tighten up the luma. Just give it a little push. And a little warmth. You're right there. Oops. Just a little bit of a pull. Okay, and then these blues, I guess the blues are okay. Uh Push the reds back. Let me see. Let me go to the global. I'm wondering these it's yellow. Okay, yellow, yellow. I need to push some of these back a bit. Push that red. Okay. And then maybe this green. Just shift it a little bit. All right, let's see where we're at. Oh, I'm getting red on here. Let me go back. I think it's this control point. Let me just pull this back. Nope, it's not that one. It's more like, where is it? Maybe it's, I'll just make a new one. I just need to pull some of these reds out. Okay. And a little bit of a push. Midtones. Okay. All right, I think we're good. So let me export that. And let me double check my settings here. The loop. I should have used my high res preset. Okay, I'm going to export this one. Yeah, this is good. All right. So overwrite. Okay. Let that go. All right. Reset. Compare. All right. So yeah, I think just a much tighter crop, and then take off this shadow off the front of the beak and everything, and bring out the eyes, and that's it. I should have touched on this talon a little bit right here. Just made that a little brighter. Dang it. I mean, Let me do that real quick. That's all it needs. So right here, I'll just use some very small control points. It's a micro contrast. Okay, how about that guy? Yeah, a little bit there. A little bit here. It's bleeding a little bit. Let's just tighten it up a little bit. Maybe, all right, perfect. Now we're done. Right? So we're going to compare with this. All right, so just an overview of the composition. Just a much tighter crop is all we needed. So we can see more of the details, particularly the eye, the talons, the beak. These things stand out much better now than they did over here by taking the shadow off the head, bringing out the eye and the talons and the speculars on the beak. I also had to adjust the color here a tiny bit. I warmed them up a tiny bit because they were in the shadows, but now looks like they're more in the light. So it's hard to tell if this bird had a shadow in the front anymore. And then if we look at the finer details, right? If we come in, we can really see this might be a little too much, right? Because nobody ever sees really the color of the eye of a blue jay. But it's a photo, so why not? We're being creative. And I like the different tones in the feathers. And the details in the feathers came out really, really nice. I didn't over sharpen it this time, I don't think. I think this came out much better. And of course the noise and everything looks really good. So if we do a slider, there's the before, and then there's the after. And then just some subtle tweaks on the colors on the branch here. This was a little bit flat, so I tried to separate the greens and the reds in that branch. So now that green fungus or mold and the bark of the tree separate a little better than the original. I think that looks good. Okay. Uh, and last one here from Noah. Okay. So really soft here, high key image. So we're not going to jack that up too much, but let's do a preset and interesting. Let me just pull this down and see what's here. So maybe just some clear view. We'll just do some global adjustments here. And then pull in. I mean, this is a creative choice, right? I think the original image being very, very high key like this is fine. Honestly, I don't think I would change a thing. I mean, the black and white kind of works with the settings I just did. So I'm going to export this one. The reason I can do this one so quickly, there's no local adjustments to make, right? Uh, so that's that one. But then let me see. Yeah, I don't like that. Uh, I don't like, I don't like that edit on the color version. Maybe, okay, I think I see one little other thing I can do is it's just because it looks like the sun is right there, right? So let me invert that and let's see if we can just make the sun right in there. So I think I would like something like that. But I need this to be a little bit stronger. See if I can feather this somewhat. Okay. Then just maybe just clip that completely. Let me see where we're at. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. And then globally, just a little bit of a push on the blacks. We don't, I don't think I need this clear view. We'll just push the blacks a little bit up. So let me see, I can move the sun a little bit like that. The sun, no, it's definitely the sun is down here. So I'll leave that there. And again, maybe a black and white. No, but I'm going to mute the colors a little bit. So we'll do natural and then desaturate, pull the vibrancy. And maybe I just need to do this. No, where's my vignette? Let's back off this vignette a little bit. Okay, composition wise, I wonder if there's anything I can do here. Whoops. Uh, no, that's terrible. Hold on. What if we do? Nope. Just experimenting a little bit. Maybe that, but I think the original just need to balance a little bit. Hmm. A little bit more. Okay, I think that's it. So I'm going to export that. This black and white could use the same crop, right there, more or less. Uh, so set. All right, so I didn't have to do much with this image, right? Maybe just a little bit tighter crop because I feel like I'm seeing too much of, it just feels a little out of balance, right? Like it would kind of tilt to the left. And then exaggerate the white point here. I wanted this completely clipped right here underneath, and then sort of vignette it all the way around. So if we do a slider, that may be easier to see the differences. But I really like the exposure as is. Exposure is nearly perfect for a high key image. Uh, all I really had to do was kind of crop in and create a very hot point right here. And then the black and white is what happened to my crop on the black and white? I just cropped that thing. How come that didn't stick? I would do the same crop to this. Oh, there it is. That's weird. Um, oh, because I didn't export it. That's why. But black and white's okay. I need to vignette it a little bit, but I think the color, the original color one, this would look really nice framed. I don't think I have any frames here. Let me see. Here's vignetting, blur, frame, maybe almost that, something like that. Okay, awesome. I think that's it for the day, right? For the edit. Man, it's been 2.5 hours. Like crap. Uh, check the chat section. Says here, still very nice edit, Rob. Really brought back those shadows in the bird. Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, the blue jay, right? And Marco back just in time. And let's see. Looks great. Impressive job with his image. Oh, okay. Thank you, Jeff. I try. Marco says, looks great. Thank you, Marco. I'm glad you like that edit. And thanks for the edit, Rob. That exposure was on accident. but I really liked it when I saw it on my PC. Yeah, me too. People overlook, high key, low key exposure sometimes. So that's why it's always tough to say getting the correct exposure. Well, it's very subjective what the correct exposure is, right? Uh, when you're being creative, if you're going for a creative look. Uh, and for the most part, everybody's sending in a good exposure, right? Uh, but this exposure, being overexposed, really brought out a very creative look to it, I think, on the cow. I would have just cropped in a little, well, I cropped in. So, and then exaggerated the highlights. Because as it was, the contrast was a little bit low, right? It's very low contrast. Adding that little bit of extra, like that extremely white blown out part in the center where the sun is, I think is kind of what set it off overall. And then just a slight vignette in um, worked for that image really well. But it's a very subtle difference between my edit and what you submitted, the raw image. So, all right, that's it for today. Again, hopefully you enjoyed this stream ad free. I appreciate your support through the what do you call it? Whatever. There's links down below to donate, become a member, all that stuff. Like, subscribe. It's all greatly appreciated. And I will be back again next week, God willing, with another photo editing stream on Fridays. You can use the same link to submit your images anytime. Also, I should be back Sunday for a normal photo chat. I think I'll talk about the new RX1R Mark III coming out. Uh, the the criticism on that's been a little harsh. Been a little. I'm not going to be as harsh on that camera. I like that camera. Uh, I wouldn't. I can't spend $5,000 for a camera, but I think the criticism is a little bit too harsh on it. And I'll explain my thinking on that camera. And God willing, I'll finish this flash video. They keep emailing me. Is it ready yet? I'm like, any day now, any day now. But it's a good little flash. I was doing some macro with it this morning. This IT30 Pro. When it comes out in Olympus version, I'm gonna get it. Uh, because I never used my Sony, but they only had the Sony version. But I'm definitely gonna get this for my Olympus. But okay, that's it. You guys are awesome. Thanks for sending your images in. It's always a lot of fun to edit, and I'll see you again soon. Have a great day, rest of your week. Um, and I'll be back on Sunday. Hmm.